All right, folks. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. I see a bunch of customers have joined today, some folks I don't know as well. I just want to say thank you again for joining this webinar. Today, we're talking about next level energy independence, and we're introducing the aPower 2 from Franklin Whole Home. Before I get started, I just want to point you guys towards the panelists today. We've got several members of our team, Caleb, Dar, John, and Matt, as well as Alex. Those are our project developers. Those are going to be the team members best suited to answer some of your specific questions and help you evaluate some of these solutions if you decide that it's a good fit to do so. And then we've got our special guest here, Justin Parrish from the Franklin Whole Home team. He's our resident expert, and he's going to be happy to answer some of the more specific questions about this exciting new product. So thanks again. We'll go ahead and get started. So first and foremost, as always, we just want to start off by introducing anyone who's not familiar to who Cape Fear Solar Systems is. We've been located here in Wilmington, North Carolina, and in business since 2007. Over that time, we've done over 4,500 installations. We've got now, I think, over 70 employees. We're, of course, BBB accredited, and I believe our reviews really speak for themselves. And we've got this bullet here on being community focused. Really what that means is that we are your local experts. We live here, we work here, and we know the industry that we work in. And that means that we understand the utilities we work with, the counties, the cities that approve the permits and inspections that we have to do in order to get these projects completed. And we're really going to be the experts that navigate this process for our customers each and every step along the way. Now we're going to go ahead and speak to who Franklin Whole Home is. I'll pass it over to Justin to talk a little bit more about their organization.
Thanks for the opportunity to join this wonderful webinar with your team. Excited about working together and collaborating. So I'm Justin Parrish, Regional Sales Manager for the Southeast, an actual Carolina native. So also, like these gentlemen, happy to help from a local level and somebody that comes from the community, not necessarily the Wilmington area, but the greater Carolinas nonetheless. So Franklin Whole Home is a whole home energy management company, right? So when we look at energy storage, Franklin sort of has developed the landscape or defined the landscape more so than just a battery, which we're going to talk about and dive into quite a bit, but more so whole home energy management in a world that's becoming more electrified. So Franklin is headquartered in San Jose, California, founded in 2019. And the reason that Franklin's a bit different and sort of focused more on whole home energy management is because a large portion of our team is actually dedicated to research and development. So Franklin has absolutely comes from the approach of essentially really spending time on the product side and the end result to the homeowner rather than a sales first focus. So the ecosystem you're going to hear about, the products we're going to talk about, the benefits, everything that you can essentially gain as a homeowner by having this specific energy storage system. It all really comes down to the fact that the majority of the team is dedicated to research and development and putting forth a product that absolutely performs at a very high level. So anyway, appreciate that, Gabe. Back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin. And on that note, what we're going to speak to next is just get down to the basics. So first and foremost, how does energy storage work? I know many of you who are joining today are customers. You have solar in your home. That's fantastic. You've been enjoying the savings that helps you realize on a month in, month out basis, year over year. Now you're maybe curious about, okay, what role does a battery play in how my system performs? And so if you have solar, when you're producing the energy that you're making, that energy is going to first go into your home and cover your home's loads. But any excess you're producing is going to get pushed out to the grid where you build up credit, and you're able to then pull from the grid when you're not producing as much as you might need. Now, because you have this relationship with the utility where you're pushing and pulling based on your home's needs as well as the solar's production, you're not able to be really self-dependent in the event of an outage. You're not going to be able to power your home in the event of an outage or to manage the way that you're using your electricity in the same way that you would if you had some device on site to be able to control that relationship. And so what a battery allows you to do is a few things. It's going to allow you to store the energy, the excess energy you might produce during the day, and charge that battery up to be able to use at night when there might be higher rate structures, depending on the utility you're on, or just to have that energy available when the grid goes down to be able to power your home. So not only are you going to be able to discharge that battery and the energy you've previously stored, but because you have that battery on site, you're going to have the ability to continue charging it and discharging it so long as you're able to produce the energy that your home needs and essentially provide yourself with what can often be indefinite power in the event of an outage. So there's some extra features here that you're going to be able to hear about regarding the aPower 2 in a moment, but that's the basics of how energy storage works. Now, Justin, if you could speak to the aPower 2 and why this is such an exciting product, that'd be fantastic.
Absolutely. So extremely excited to introduce the aPower 2 to the world and the Carolinas specifically. So the aPower 2 is a 15 kilowatt hour capacity battery, meaning you, as a homeowner, each aPower 2 that would be installed on site, you'd have 15 kilowatt hours to consume, fully depletable. It has a 10 kilowatt hour 10 kilowatt discharge rate. So your continuous power each aPower 2 can provide would be 10 kilowatts continuously. And then for the LRA, I'll keep it more so in layman's terms. What that means is for any folks that have a 5-ton or lower HVAC system, common size HVAC system, you would be able to start and run a modern 5-ton or less HVAC with an aPower 2. On the warranty peace of mind side, 15 years or 60 megawatt hours of throughput. What that means for an average person that doesn't live and work in our industry is essentially 10,000 cycles. So as a homeowner, you would have either 15 years or 10,000 cycles, whichever came first in terms of the warranty from Franklin. When we look at the AC coupled nature of the battery, that means that you could essentially take all of the solar PV that you have on your roof and you can combine it with the power in the battery because the aPower 2 has its own battery inverter. So you're actually combining the power from both sources. And the other beautiful thing about AC coupled battery, like the aPower 2, is the fact that it's inverter agnostic. So if you have existing solar or you're designing a new system, it doesn't matter. It works with any modern solar inverter on the market. And then one of the other things about the aPower 2 and the Franklin system in general that really ties into that energy management piece I was talking about earlier is the fact that we can integrate any modern 240 volt, 60 hertz generator to the system, whether it be portable or a true standby hardwired generator. It can be integrated with the system, power the home, as well as recharge the battery if you were in a significant long-term outage and solar production was not sufficient to cover your needs. The generator can be tied in, wired into the system, and basically integrate to power your home and recharge the battery if need be directly from the generator. And then lastly, the thermal management of the system. So our operating temperature is from -4 Fahrenheit to 130 Fahrenheit. So obviously in the greater Carolina region, let alone the coast, should never really have an issue come about where the operating temperature would be outside of that range. So whether it's an indoor installation or an outdoor installation, it absolutely, can cover those parameters in terms of your site specifically. And then we're a fanless convection system, which is not only quieter, but eliminates the fans that are typically come in power electronics like batteries historically. We've achieved it with passive cooling. So we've made it quieter, but we've also eliminated fans, which, as you know, can be one of the components on a power electronics that fails first. So just increasing peace of mind as well as making it quieter for the end user.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Justin. I can certainly speak to some cases in the past where we've seen some really cold temperatures. And I'm aware of products in the industry that otherwise would have had some really difficult times with those temperatures, even in North Carolina.
Yeah, and you didn't mention it there before you go on, but the aPower 2 actually has a heating blanket built into it. So if we ever reached abnormal temperatures that were extreme and somehow below that temperature range, the aPower 2 will initiate the heating blanket at a certain temperature threshold, and that heating blanket will remain on until it works, until that temperature range is back to sufficient. So different conversation, but it does have a heating blanket built in if for some reason the coast of North Carolina ever dipped below -4 Fahrenheit and stayed there.
Absolutely. The fanless convection also can't be taken for granted. I've heard the fans on some of the other products out there. And in most cases, it's, no issue at all. But, if it's anywhere near your bedroom, then it could be.
Absolutely.
All right. So jumping on to our next slide here, I wanted to highlight a couple of the really unique features about this product. And one that we're actually highlighting this month is the smart circuit load management. And really what this is a smart circuits module that can be put into the A gate. And if you look at this diagram here, the A gate is the component above the battery. So the taller of the two units here on the wall. The one that's higher up on the wall, that A gate, is essentially like a transfer switch. So that's the component of the battery that's going to allow the system to switch over to battery power in the event of an outage. It also houses the smart circuits module that can be added to a system to allow you to have control of up to 3 circuits. In many cases, you want to prioritize, okay, can I have maybe my HVAC handler on here? Do I want to have maybe my hot water heater on here? So that you can not only have the battery automatically start and stop those heavy non-critical loads in the event of an outage, but you can do so remotely as well. And this is just going to allow you then to prolong the battery's backup runtime and make sure that your system continues running even in a period where maybe there's not as much sun out. And that's a pretty unique feature. A lot of the other products out there are going to require a third-party hardware to be able to have that sort of load management and at a much higher cost than what you might be able to do with the smart circuit load module. And so one of the things we're at Cape Fear Solar doing to just encourage the adoption of a product like this is we're actually offering a promotion for just this month, where if you purchase an aPower 2, then you'll get the smart circuit load module at no additional cost. And so if that's something that you want to take advantage of or even learn more about, you'll know who to talk to with one of our project developers here. But just wanted to highlight that here for a moment. Anything to add there, Justin?
You did a really good job explaining it. I think this just sort of elaborates on the home energy management piece and how at Franklin Whole Home, that's been the approach to the energy storage landscape in our eyes, is actually not just bringing storage to the table, which storage on its own is fantastic, but taking it one step further and truly tying in the whole home energy management, or just energy management in general, of being able to have generator integration, like we talked about, smart circuits available, tying different power sources together through one system that a homeowner can intelligently manage. It just takes it one step further and allows that visibility, that control, in a world where technology gets better by the day. Franklin has really embodied that in an energy storage system, and the smart circuit module is just one of those ways. But absolutely hit the nail on the head, man.
Yeah, absolutely, and all in one app at that. So it's fantastic.
Correct.
And speaking of generator integration, do you mind speaking here to the generator module and how that functions?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the optional accessories with a Franklin Whole Home system is the generator module. And so what the generator module would do is it would unlock the ability to tie in any modern 240 volt, 60 hertz generator. Okay, so whether it be, again, a standby hardwired generator to the home, or an actual portable generator, as long as it's 240 volt, 60 hertz, it can tie into the generator module and integrate with the system. Now, that's going to essentially do a few things for you. One, it's going to create more redundancy at the home for outage protection, right? I mean, a well-designed solar system by you guys tied in with an aPower 2 or more than one aPower 2 is a fantastic system that's hard to put a price on the benefits of that system. But for anybody that wants to go one step further and protect themselves from any storm event, any outage that could come at them, layering that with a generator behind it and integrate it into the same system would then further protect them if somehow, some way, the solar PV production wasn't sufficient during the storm, or other situations that we could sort of rabbit hole. But nonetheless, having that generator there to integrate with the battery and be able to recharge the battery just provides that extra layer of defense, extra layer of resiliency or redundancy during an outage. And for anybody that has a standby generator, one of the really cool features, if and when you integrate a generator with the Franklin system, is you as the homeowner can actually control when the generator comes on and when the generator goes off as part of the system. So for instance, real life example, you can set the state of charge of the battery as a parameter of where the generator comes on. So let's say, for instance, you're in an outage and you're actually having to use your generator. You could program the system to where the generator came on at a set state of charge of the battery and goes off at a set state of charge of the battery. And you can dictate that whenever you want. So when it's time to go to bed, if for some reason your generator was still running, you could make tweaks to your system so that you could sleep quietly and live off the battery power. And essentially, getting to know how the system works, you could even further conserve fuel on the generator if you ever needed to use the generator during the outage. So it essentially gives you just more tools in the tool belt as a homeowner to protect yourself from really any sort of event, short-term or long-term, that comes at you, by layering in a generator on top of solar and storage, and it all integrating into one system and one app, like Gabe said.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that. Yeah, it's just such a cool feature and something I know that more manufacturers are trying to highlight. But the way that does that with other features like the smart circuit module, I think is super unique.
Yeah, and one step further, not to cut you off, Gabe, but so it isn't a new feature at Franklin. Actually, the original ecosystem has been introduced with generator integration, and there's hundreds of systems across the country using generator integration flawlessly right now. So it's tried and true and proven here, which is a bit different, to your point, than people that are trying to take a stab at that now. It's been designed that way, sort of in the DNA of Franklin from day one.
Awesome. And I appreciate you mentioning, portable generators as well, because that kind of ties into, the vehicle to load functionality. And there is no, vehicle to load module, right? But essentially what you're able to do is to use the generator module and, a generator inlet with a portable generator. But the same thing can be potentially done with certain EV models. If it has the right output, it's got that 240 volt, and you can do that, then you're going to be looking at vehicles like the Tesla Cybertruck, Ford F-150, and a few others that are going to allow you to essentially power your home and those loads without a bidirectional charger through those means. So a really neat feature of just tying this ecosystem together. And I appreciate you tying into that as well. Now, for anyone who is maybe, again, newer to storage, and we've been talking a lot about the product, and we spoke a little bit at a higher level about, why energy storage. I just want to take a moment to speak to some of the frequent reasons that we hear our customers choose to add energy storage to existing systems, or even just choose to incorporate it to begin with. And really, those are, one, energy independence, and that's just being able to store and utilize the energy that they store freely and however they might like to do so. Backup power, of course, which we've talked a lot about, which is being able to power your home in the event of an outage without needing a generator. Of course, with this ecosystem, you can tie one in if you have one, but you may not necessarily need one. It's got the output to be able to start most home loads, if not all, in a lot of cases. The financial savings is a factor with some utility structures. So if you have a time of use rate structure, or the utility incentivizes you to be able to store and use the energy that you're producing yourself, then that's a factor also. And then lastly, grid flexibility. So one thing we know is that utility structures change, rates increase, types of billing change. We're hearing a lot of utilities going towards more of these time of use rate structures full time. And so if you're able to insulate yourself and be able to control how and when you're producing and using the energy that you're making, then you're going to be insulated for the future. And lastly, utility incentives, and that ties me right into the Duke Energy Power Pair incentive. Now, this is something we've been talking about for quite some time. Capacity on this program is certainly beginning to get used up. We're over halfway through the capacity. But what the Power Pair incentive is it's up to $9,000 in initial incentives for anyone who's installing a new solar and storage system. So for those of you that are customers, you already have solar, you're not unfortunately going to be able to get this $9,000 upfront incentive, but that's okay because there is an additional incentive that you can claim, which is the EnergyWise program. If you have questions about Power Pair, I know I went through that really quickly. I know a lot of you are customers though today, so I just wanted to jump on over to EnergyWise and how you can benefit. If you're not yet a solar customer and you're curious about Power Pair, and you're on Duke Energy, then please do send us a message, and we'll go ahead and get you hooked up with the right project developer to talk about what that could look like for you. Now, as for EnergyWise, this is a program available to anyone who has a battery. So if you have a battery already, you're eligible. If you are adding a battery to a system and you're curious about that and you're on Duke Energy here in North Carolina, then you'll be eligible for this program. And the way that it works is it's a virtual power plant program, which means that the utility is going to essentially be able to tap into that battery a certain number of times a year, and is designed to be able to support the grid from these critical high demand periods. Some of you may remember a couple of years ago, it was, I think, 2022, December, when Duke Energy actually reached out and let homeowners know that they should expect rolling brownouts because we were getting ready for a real cold front coming through, and they didn't expect they were going to be able to meet the demand of all those homes kicking on their heat at the same time. And so what they want to be able to do is incentivize homeowners with batteries to participate in providing this energy back to the grid during those times. And in doing so, they'll receive an incentive in return. And so speaking to exactly how this is accomplished, the program allows Duke Energy to discharge the battery down to 20%, so no lower than 20%, between 30 to 36 times a year. The homeowner is going to get notified anytime that there's going to be an event through their battery app. So it would be through the Franklin app, for instance. And you're going to be able to see how much capacity you have left. You're able to monitor it all through there, but you also are allowed to opt out up to 4 times a year. So let's say it's coming up, an event's coming up in 2 days, but maybe there's a storm forecasted and you're not sure that you're comfortable with them pulling from your battery in that time. You can use an opt-out, no problem. And it's not going to impact your incentive. And the way that incentive is calculated is $6.50 times 70.9% of the maximum output capacity of the battery. And this comes out to up to $92.17 a month. Sorry to put you on the spot, Justin, but do you remember exactly what Franklin's is? I want to say it's $46.
On the dot, it's 46 for aPower 2, each one.
Cool. So each aPower 2 unit, you're looking at $46 a month. So if you get 2, then you're eligible for essentially the maximum there of $92 a month in the form of a bill credit every single month. And there are a limited list of these approved battery products. The aPower 2, of course, is there. Now, here's a little bit more specific information about how to enroll in EnergyWise. The key here is, though, we take care of a lot of that process for you. We walk you through it, show you how to enroll, and make sure that you get enrolled, no problem. But then again, it's all in the app of Franklin. So you'll be able to monitor what's happening during an event, when an event's happening, and you're well aware of how much energy is getting exported to the grid during those times. Another key thing just to note there before I move on is if the power goes out during a grid event, then all of a sudden you're separated, you're using your energy just as you would have liked. Another high level thing here is just what will this actually look like on your bill? So these are showing examples of those bill credits. They literally are just going to deduct that amount from your bill every single month if you participate. And again, in the case of an aPower 2, you're looking at $46 for 1 unit and $92 if you were to purchase 2 units. So a real quick shot of just all of those incentives. Again, if you're not currently a solar customer, you're eligible for that up to $9,000 if you're on Duke Energy, plus the Energy Wise program, which can add up to $90.17 a month if you're doing multiple batteries. For most folks, if you're purchasing just one battery, you're looking at $46 a month. And that's all in addition to the 30% federal tax credit, which you can claim on the purchase of a battery, as well as if you are getting solar or not. All right, so with that all being said, we've got several questions here coming into our Q&A. I'm going to go ahead and start working through these and pass them off to my team members to see who might be best fit to answer them. The first question here, I think this one is a little bit more technical. Dar, maybe this is your customer if I'm correct. A question here from Roger. It says the basic question is inefficiency. We make DC power, convert to AC to use and or put it onto the grid, and then we lose a bit converting DC to AC. So adding a battery increases the inefficiency, converting AC back to DC to store. Is that
Can I take that one?
Yeah, go for it, Justin.
Yeah, Roger, this is a fantastic question. And so I preface this by saying, I don't just come from the manufacturing side, actually quite new to the manufacturing side. I actually come from the installer side, a different installer than Cape Fear. And so I was on the energy storage design side of our business and sales side for a very long time. So your question is actually a very common question I used to get from homeowners. And so you're absolutely correct that DC to DC, obviously DC is the most efficient way to do this. However, that typically is if we're making a pro and con list, the efficiency is about the only pro on the DC side, unless you're only looking for the lowest cost option way to do something, right? But let's take cost out of it just from a technical standpoint. So the DC side has efficiency. However, the AC coupled side has substantially more power because, as you point out, the inefficiency, but because of that inefficiency, you have multiple inverters on site. You have all the solar on the roof or on the ground has its own inverter, and you have all of the power in the battery that can be combined. And then one step further, every time you add another AC coupled battery, if you were to install more than one or expand the system in the future, you're going to increase every spec basically exponentially, right? You're going to double power, peak and continuous, as well as capacity. And that's going to double, triple, quadruple every time you increase a battery or add a battery to the system as one benefit. On a DC coupled system or DC powered system, you're limited by the power of that sole inverter, right? Secondly, you have one point of failure on a DC system, a single inverter that powers solar and storage. So in a world where most people are investing a great deal of money in the types of systems we're talking about, they're buying it for energy independence or redundancy or resiliency. But a DC coupled system has one point of failure. It doesn't have redundancy built in by default, quite the opposite, right? And then Dar, you can jump in if you want to. I mean, I could literally have a webinar about DC versus AC coupled. Those are just a few of the high points. There are some others I would add, but I'm curious about your input as well, past, essentially the power standpoint, as well as the resiliency and the redundancy of having, more than one inverter on site.
No, Justin, that's fair. I mean, I think there's always going to be this discussion about AC coupled compared to DC coupled. I think for us, there's a lot of value in being able to supply an AC coupled solution, just from a service and operations and maintenance standpoint, where we're having a 25-year warranty on all the rooftop components, and we know that it's going to be much easier for us to maintain and service those systems, without a single point of failure tied into that DC coupled inverter. So I have a lot of peace of mind, recommending a solution like that to a homeowner. And of course, at the end of the day, the output of the system has to make sense. But looking at the DC coupled solutions that are on the market, it can be more challenging to make that power output make sense in terms of what a homeowner wants to see in terms of being able to power their whole home.
Absolutely. And then again, I think just the nature of the world we live in, very few people buy a product and that's the only way they're ever going to interact with that system or upgrade or add on. And the AC coupled, if you have an AC coupled system, the ability to retrofit, expand, sort of interact with the system is so much more flexible than a DC coupled system, which some people don't necessarily think about on the front end of the system, but it sort of comes to bite them on the back end if they're ever trying to expand or sort of add on to set system. So, one thing that certainly I thought about when advising homeowners.
Would have been nice if we just had a DC grid and we wouldn't have to answer these questions, wouldn't it?
Agreed. Roger, really, really, really good question. I hope that answered it good enough. Happy to take this offline and do a deep dive with you one-on-one if we need to as well and go further.
Justin, I think there's just one last question to follow up on that one, regarding, I think he uses the word loss rate, but what is sort of the conversion rate from that, storage AC to storage DC?
You mean in terms of efficiency?
Yes, sir.
I don't have the spec sheet in front of me, but if my memory is correct, I think it's 92%.
That sounds about right. I think it's about right.
Yeah. It's either 92 or 93. So, I mean, it's in the 90s, right? So I feel like in a real world application, when you're in an outage event or you're using these batteries, that's 7 or 8% compared to the pros side of the list sort of starts to dissolve rather quickly compared to if it was like 60% efficiency, I think we have a very different conversation, or something much lower than low 90s.
Right. And also, it's worth saying there that, if you're using the battery primarily for backup or an incentive program like a VPP, then those losses are certainly very minimal.
Correct.
And obviously, if you're on a structure where you're incentivized from a time of use perspective, then again, the value in being able to arbitrage that energy to a different time window is going to be far greater than any loss you might see.
Agreed.
And maybe Justin, while you're on the topic, I know it looks like you put a note here as well and could speak to the question about the warranty and what sort of surveillance or monitoring Franklin does or has to have in terms of internet connectivity, perhaps, to be able to maintain that warranty.
Yeah, absolutely. So Roger, another really good question. So I wouldn't say from the standpoint Franklin requires surveillance, because if you had a look behind the curtain or sort of was able to see behind the scenes of how companies operate in this space, Franklin essentially is by far the most sort of whatever your heart desires or whatever you want to do as a homeowner or a small business owner, sort of go wild with it, right? So what I mean by that is the same warranty that supports any modern normal on-grid home in the US. Well, we actually service further than the US, so outside of the US as well. That same warranty is offered to any off-grid system and could introduce you to some projects that are off-grid and have been since day one. So Franklin is one of the only manufacturers that sort of plays in both sandbox and does it really well. So you absolutely can design an off-grid system with Franklin and benefit from the same warranty. The only requirement that Franklin has for the warranty to stay fully intact at 15 years or 60 megawatt hours is that every so often, and we can get into the fine print, but I believe it's 4 months. It might be, I have to double check on that, but I believe it's with every 4 months. It needs to be able to connect to an internet connection of some sort, hotspot, Wi-Fi. It doesn't tell you what that source is, so you can be as flexible as you want. It just needs to connect for firmware updates. Not that Franklin needs to see or cares what anybody's doing with their system, but if there's a firmware update that has been issued to fix a bug or introduce an enhancement or anything that comes from the R&D side, the system just needs to be able to access that firmware update. So it's about as lax as you could possibly get in this industry for this type of warranty to have those little of parameters on it in terms of connectivity.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin. I'm going to go ahead and jump into some of the other questions from our attendees here. And again, thanks everyone for going ahead and sending these in. We really appreciate the opportunity to be able to answer these in these environment and asking about whether there are incentives on BEMC.
BEMC does not have any utility incentives. However, you are still eligible to claim that federal tax credit on Brunswick Electric.
Yeah, so currently, yeah, that's all that's available for anyone who's on BEMC, and that's the case for most utilities. This program is really unique that Duke's offering, so you have an opportunity to take advantage of it. It's a great opportunity. Otherwise, while there aren't programs like this yet for BEMC, that also could be that they're waiting for more batteries to get on the grid, and that's something that we've seen more and more customers on BEMC begin to take advantage of over the last year or so. Next question here, a quick question. Maybe we can do this at a very high level, just on how this might compare to the Tesla Powerwall 3. Powerwall 3 is a product that we have certainly offered to a lot of our customers. It's been very successful for those customers. Some of the maybe key differences or one that Roger highlighted is it has the ability to be potentially DC coupled as well as AC coupled. Using the Tesla integrated inverter. The battery here from Franklin Whole Home is very agnostic in terms of inverter. So in theory, you could pair it with the Tesla inverter as well as any other inverter that's on the market, funny enough. And the output of the Powerwall 3 is going to be a little bit higher at 11.5 kW. But the lock rotor amperage, so what allows that battery to be able to start an HVAC unit, is essentially about the same. And so in terms of that starting kick to be able to start up a load, that's going to be about the same. And the big difference in terms of the size of the battery and storage capacity of the battery is that you've got 15 kilowatt hours of storage in the Franklin Whole Home battery, the aPower 2, and 13.5 kilowatt hours of storage in the Tesla Powerwall 3. So, a slight increase in storage capacity from the Powerwall 3 to going to Franklin Whole Home's aPower 2, something we're really excited about as well. Maybe the biggest difference is that some of these features that we've highlighted, smart circuit module, the management that provides, the generator module, the benefits that provides as well, those are not features that are going to be available with the Tesla Powerwall product. Certainly there are things out there, smart load management, smart panels that you can install alongside that product, and we've done that with plenty of our customers to great success. But this provides a really cost-effective and holistic solution to be able to do all that in one place. And I think that's something that we're really excited about for our customers. I know that's a lot. We could unpack this for a while, but if there's anything we feel like we want to touch on here very briefly, then we can certainly do that. Nope, I think we're good. All right. Let's see. I think that's the majority of our questions that we needed to hit here. One question I did want to ask, and this is for any of our project developers here, and we've been offering this product now for, I guess it's been really about a month, and I'm curious, in some of the conversations that you've had, what are some of the biggest reasons that homeowners have selected to use the aPower 2, maybe compared to another product on the market?
Yeah, sure, Gabe. I'm happy to jump in and answer that. From my perspective, it's been really exciting to be able to get the Franklin aPower 2 in the mix and have those conversations. I think one of the first times I did, it was for a homeowner who had a generator on site. And for them, it was a tremendous relief to think that, not only would the system work together, but it would actually work better than just the generator on its own and solve a problem that they had. And that, sometimes they're not there at that house, they're living somewhere else, and they're concerned about whether the generator's running when it needs to be and not having any visibility on that. So it was really exciting, I think, for both of us to dive a little bit deeper into this and learn how we could integrate our system together with what they already had to make their whole home, work better. Really, probably, honestly, deliver probably the experience that they thought they wanted when they decided to have that generator installed in the first place. It's also been, I think, really reassuring for folks to see that warranty. It is a big investment that folks are making when they're purchasing these systems and having us install them. And I think being able to tell them that you know, it's going to be under warranty for 15 years, and maybe all the rooftop components are going to be covered for 25 years. Seems to give folks a lot of peace of mind, especially when compared with Powerwall 3 as an option.
Yeah, that's a huge jump. 10 years to 15 years, it can be certainly taken for granted on paper, but yeah, that's an extra 50% on top of what the Powerwall 3 and a lot of other products are able to offer on the market.
Yeah, and the one other thing I'd add, maybe selfishly, I hope that a homeowner is going to see benefit in the smart circuits module and what that looks like. But I know that from my perspective, if I have the ability to include that in a system design, I'm just that much more reassured that the system is going to work well and actually do what the person needs it to do in a power outage. I think a lot of folks out there, maybe haven't yet woken up to how important that's going to be to have those components, but it certainly gives me peace of mind, especially when we can include them, like we are this month, no additional cost, that the system's gonna just work well and deliver a smooth experience.
Very cool. I do have another question that came in here. Gentlemen, maybe you can collectively answer this. The question really is just about question. So an average 1,800 square foot home will run how long on a 15 kW battery? I've got another question here about any info on devices on what the capacity can cover, hot water heater, fridge, AC, what can run for a day, and what array size can recharge the battery. Maybe one of you can speak to your process in looking at, okay, how much solar energy is being produced, what's your current usage patterns, and how you might go about determining what the right fit is for a system and how long it might last.
So Roger, you've got quite a few really good questions, to the point where I feel like we should probably schedule a one-off call. And if you're a DARS customer, whoever, we should all jump on a three-way call and literally just dive through some of these very well thought out questions you have. But the one about the average 1,800 square foot home and how long will a 15 kW battery, sort of last? There's a lot of layers, and there's no definitive answer to this question, because your 1,800 square foot home, or just the example 1,800 square foot home, it could be very different from somebody else's, right? I don't know electric appliances, gas appliances, not to mention, are we talking about, I'm assuming we're talking about an outage scenario, but from your lifestyle, or 10 other homeowners in an 1,800 square foot lifestyle, what are they going to do when you're in life raft mode, so to speak? The grid's down. How is that going to interact? And then how much PV power do you have in the equation as well, right? So I say all that to get to the point. I live in an 1,800 square foot house, and if I had the aPower 2 tied into an average size PV system, I could survive indefinitely, because I have a gas water heater and I have gas heat. Right? Like there's so many variables that go into how you could do that, but I could last days, weeks, months if I had to, right? The conversation really is centered around, what are your expectations? What are you going to do during that outage? It could look very different from everybody, but the answer, goes from 24 to 48 hours for some people to, again, somewhere around indefinite for other people. I think there's so many layers that go into how long that will last, that it's an impossible question to answer without making it a case by case, personalized basis to you specifically or set homeowner.
Roger's case, we could probably look at pretty detailed information about how much he's using and how much he's using his solar. So that could be interesting to have those data points. We don't always have those data points when we're trying to set expectations or answer these questions for somebody who's looking at one of these systems for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. The same thing is true for Greg's question. Capacity, water. I mean, Greg, I can tell you, just looking at your list very quickly. So an average tanked water heater, if that's what we're talking about, let alone you'd have to have some extravagant tankless electric solution to exceed 15 kW continuous, which, I mean, the aPower 2's, or I'm sorry, continuous peak. So the aPower's peak is 15 kW for 10 seconds. Its continuous is 10 kW, right, which is 41.6 amps. So a standard tanked water heater, no problem at all. An average fridge, add another 3 on there, no problem. Again, AC, as long as you're a 5-ton or less, absolutely. To be honest with you, there's a beta site that has a 3-ton and a 3.5-ton, and I was there. It ran both. So if there was such as a thing as a 6.5-ton HVAC, a single aPower 2 can handle it. So really, the second part of your question is the most important. What do you have tied into it from an array size and a solar size? Because if it's efficiently done, you could have a system that could go far past this list you have right here and essentially, create a very self-sufficient system that rarely ever has to tap the grid or covers you for days, if not weeks, during an outage with proper PV sizing.
Awesome. Well, that was a lot, guys. I appreciate all of your time and being able to uncover some of the questions here. For our attendees who are still here, thanks again so much for joining. We really appreciate your time. If you are wanting to get connected with a member of our team, please call us at 910-409-5533. I've also just sent into the chat the contact information for our project developers here. If you've worked with Matt, Dar, JP, or Caleb for your solar project and you want to talk to them a little bit more about storage, please reach out to them. Their contacts are there. If you're one of our customers and maybe your project developer isn't here any longer, or you're just not sure who they are, then feel free to reach out to Alex here. He's going to be best suited to help you out. Thanks again, Justin. Really appreciate your time. What an awesome special guest, and we're really stoked about this product. And again, if you're interested in this promotion and being able to take advantage of it this month, get the smart circuit module at no additional cost, then start that conversation with one of these guys. And if it's not a good fit, then that's okay too. All right, y'all. Well, have a good night. Thanks again. And until next time.
Appreciate the opportunity, Gabe. Looking forward to the partnership. You guys have a good one.
Bye-bye.